welcome to the next installment of the Dismount Podcast. And I want to take this second to say hello and welcome you guys. We got the usual suspects here. I'm riding along and I'm saddling up to discuss free will with Derek and Brandon. What the hell are we doing with ourselves with this conversation, boys?
This is a deep one.
This one is a lot to handle. This is a lot to take on. This, to me, is another one of those topics that if you're not ready for it, like last week's karma, man, it could throw you for a whirlwind. Like it could take you for a ride. Really?
Touchdown.
But discussing free will. What the hell
What'd
is free will?
What'd you say before we got started when we were outside the room? You said something like, we don't know. What if we don't know anything about anything we talk about? Or something along those lines.
No, I
was just thinking in general. It was funny.
Yeah, but that is kind of funny if you pull it back this way.
Yeah.
I was saying that if you get too deeper in your life and you have all this built up knowledge and you sit back and you start thinking, and Derek just hit me with the, yeah, but what if you didn't? And I was like, wow, I had never really thought about myself becoming 80 or 90 years old and not sitting back and thinking about like all the things that I've acquired throughout my life, like in terms of experiences, thoughts, ideas, things that you agreed with, things that you didn't agree with, opinions that you held for how long you held for them. And then that has me thinking now, like, how do you even sit there and really think about conceptualizing that as like, how am I going to sit there at 90 years old and remember all these things that happened to me if I don't have something that shows me what happened to me?
Yeah.
To remind me of those things, and even so much as like, that's what made pictures. Like I'm talking the photo, just boxes of just your family having pictures. Like that makes that kind of cool.
Right.
When now, and then now it's like, oh, well, I can just put 10 million pictures on this thing and I could look at this. So now I was like, well, look, now at this age, like, what the hell actually is free will? Like, what are we even discussing, dude? What are we even talking about right now? Because when I originally brought this title to you guys of Free Willy, do we have it? I initially took myself right back to the movies that I used to watch growing up that I loved, the Free Willy series. And I used to watch Free Willy like it was my day job, dude. That was my jam. I like that movie. And I don't know why what am I now, 31 years old, sitting here and going, okay, so free will had nothing to do with Free Willy. Oh, wait, how does this have to do with Free Willy? Oh, this might have to do
I got some ideas.
Everything to do with Free Willy. So hit me, Tit. Where are you going?
I mean, if you think about it, like the whole concept of like, I don't really remember it. All I remember is that they're more or less oppressing this orca or killer whale, and they're trying to keep it contained, bogged down, if you will. So in that sense, it's like, well, they're trying to give it back that ability to just go out and about. So they're trying to free Willy, but they're also trying to restore its ability to make its own choices.
Isn't that wild? It just, it goes even deeper into, I was reading that story, not the actual Hustler story, but the story about the dolphins down there of, the lady there. Do you know the story, the Hustler story of the lady who basically would fool around with dolphins?
I don't.
It was for scientific
imagination.
reasons, but when she stayed down in the Caribbean and they moved those dolphins back to Miami, that dolphin just offed itself, just committed suicide.
Wow.
Because supposedly dolphins can just, every breath is consciousness for them. And that any moment in time, they can just decide to just stop breathing.
Wow.
Just literally just stop breathing. And I was like, wait, hold up. That's a crazy concept. Like, could you imagine? Like, that's where like this whole topic of free will for me, like it just, I told Derek, that's what I said. What if this is one of those things that we're just not supposed to ever understand?
Oh, that's what you said, yeah.
And to me, this might really be that one thing that just every way you try to come at it from a different angle, you're going to put it into a new category, like that PBS special that we were just watching down there. I'm just creating another category of like, oh, well, if you think this way about it, then you're in this box.
Yeah.
And it's like, how many different freaking labels can we put on your different viewpoints of this to where we can just agree that like none of us can finally hone in on like, okay, this makes sense 99.9% of the time. And yes, there might be that one outlier that totally blows this whole concept out of water. But like 99.9% of the time, that's what we're seeing.
Yeah.
You know, like, but
Yeah.
there's nothing like that. It's just everybody keeps going into this different route of what is free will to them.
Yeah. We might as well just talk about brain surgery. Like, we'd probably know the same amount.
Think we know more?
But
Well, like the good news is that everyone's in the same boat on that one. Like some people know exactly what to do when having to perform brain surgery.
yeah,
But here it's like, oh, you can kind of guess, but you don't. Your answer is not correct. It's just not proven, regardless of what your answer is and all the reasoning behind it. Like there's laws of physics behind some of the things that happen here, and I think that's what makes it interesting because like everyone just has a theory about it, but it doesn't mean it's true at all.
well, then we keep finding different things out. Like not too long ago, scientists dived into the actual brain because of how much we can really scan the brain now. And they saw activity in the brain before someone was actually even put into a place to make a conscious decision. Like before they were even given the actual context of thinking about something, they were already initiating thought.
Yeah.
And so that's like, well, then that just threw out like the whole going against free will. Where the hell is that coming from?
Yeah.
Like, is that the spirit? Is that the soul? Is that unconsciousness? What the hell like are we trying to wrap our head around? And to me, I thought about it in a sense of what if we just threw this whole concept out the window? And what if this perspective of even sitting here and thinking about free will, what if I never even put that in front of you? That was never even something that you even could even fathom or imagine. Because if we sat here right now, and Sam Harris did this in his podcast and his book, but if we sat here right now and you were to think of a movie and think of the feeling of watching that movie and picking that movie. Well, that was just a random movie, but what about all the movies that you have never seen before? Those aren't even in your realm of your list that you would potentially be picking from.
Yeah.
So what if free will was just something that we never talked about and just threw it out the window and just said, fuck it. Like, then we're sitting here and what is the context of the conversation then? You know, what are we trying to hone in on? Because when we're trying to think about free will, it's our decisions that we have. We either have the ability to make decisions or we don't have the ability to make decisions.
Right.
So if we just take that whole perspective out the window, then what is it? It's just randomness. And then, oh wait, but now that's a new one of those categories. Like,
well, yeah, I mean, I think we just had a little educational blurb before we came up here, but it does make sense. The fact that, like, yeah, you might have some, like, preliminary basis on the decision you make, but there's some thought behind the fact that, like, you were led to make that decision based off, like, past occurrences and the things you've experienced leading up to that moment and the weather and how your morning went and yada, yada, yada. So you had the ability to make that decision, but there also is some thought behind what actually led you to make that decision, and was there ever another way that that decision could have went. So in my opinion, it does take, like, if you take free will out of it, like, then what's the alternative? Well, then the alternative is like everything was determined, and you, no matter what you do, you can't escape the fate in which you have. Like, which kind of sucks, but well, that was the story too that we just listened to before you came down, was Oedipus, and he's like,
Oh,
yeah,
yes.
yeah, it's the same thing. His dad was like, oh, dude, this guy's supposed to kill me. I'm just gonna leave him in the woods.
Mhm.
And they're like, little did he know that's exactly what he's supposed to do, and that led on the events of him killing him and then marrying his mom. And he's like, there's no way I would do that. And by you going against that, you actually created the exact scenario that was supposed to occur the entire time. So that kind of like leans into like, okay, like no matter what it is, like, yeah, you can have free will in the decisions you make, but like, instead of thinking about like what's determining your future, it's almost like, or I guess that would be exactly, instead of thinking about like, hey, what exactly is leading me to the next decision, it's more or less like, hey, what decisions you made up until this point, which were just a fucking avalanche of each other, actually led you to make the next decision, among other things.
I have two concepts that are kind of interesting on that note. One of them being the ending to Oedipus Rex. Do either of you remember the ending to Oedipus Rex?
I don't even know what that is. Is
So-
that the story?
So whenever they say Oedipus complex, it's whenever like you might be into your mother. Well, he kills his father and he has sex with his mother, even though they tried to prevent both of those things to happen.
Right.
And I think he even went as far as marrying his mother. When he finds out he killed his father and married and had sex with his mother, then he stabs his eyes out and then exiles himself. Now, this is the first mind-bending concept is, was that an act of his own free will? Or is that because of conditioned response, stimulus and response? He did these atrocious acts, which he didn't want to do, that were deterministic, but was his actions afterwards, were those acts of free will, or were those still deterministic because those are stimulus and response?
Yeah, right. It's cause and effect.
And
Yeah.
it makes me think,
God, try to be more PC on this show.
you brought up Oedipus, he's not very PC.
Yeah, he banged his mom and took his
Killed his
eyes
dad.
out and gouged his eyes
Yeah.
out. And he probably did the last one because he did the other things.
So the second concept that makes
Right?
me think, second concept, determinism and free will, to me seems like we have two glasses. One's a glass of sugar, one's a glass of salt. And then we dump them into the same pile. And then we say, okay, now let's figure out what's the salt and what's the sugar. And as much as we try to pull out one or the other, it's like, well, you might still leave one behind no matter what.
Yeah.
But that was just my thoughts on it. I was like, wow, the more you try to filter it out,
Yeah.
the more difficult it gets. And it's like, well, you could classify it and whatnot. It was like, but you still might miss one little shard, one little piece.
Yeah.
No matter what, it seems like it's kind of removed.
Yeah.
But it's more like dumping a glass of water on top of that.
Holy crap.
Yep.
I'm just trying to sit here and wrap your head around the concept of free will, just in its whole, like, is a mind-bending thing. So when do we actually have ideas that might be mind-bending ideas?
It's like when people make a decision, they're like, I'm in the mood for this. Well, then your mood made this. Like, I'm thinking about, like, just like, man, I want pizza. What led you to want pizza? Well, probably because you had pizza a bunch of other times before, and something reminded you of the pizza you had. It was because it's dark out now at 4:00 and it's cold. And you're like, I really like pizza when it's cold, or something. Like something when you're in the mood, it's because like something set you off to be in there. That's I find it hard to like get around that, like saying that, yeah, we have free will, I'm still able to make the decision, like I can make the decision, but something's leading me there. And even if it's to be understanding of the fact that I wanted the pizza and then deciding to do something else just because of that, well, then I did, I was like, well, I determined that already because I was like, I'm gonna be shifty, get out of here, and dodge my own self. But like that was like going to happen already anyway. You know, like it's a juggling act almost.
Yeah, you're constantly trying to figure out what was the cause to the effect.
Right. Exactly.
But there was something that I noticed in the whole concept of what we're discussing, and it was the only way that you could truly know what those temperaments, beliefs, and there was one other traits. Isn't that what the three were that
Is it
made up your
personality?
equaled action?
Listen to him; he would know it more than I would.
But those things, how do you fuck? Where was I going with that?
Temperaments, beliefs, these traits would lead up to your actions.
Correct.
But those decisions that you make in those things can be changed. Those are what end up ultimately making what is the final action. You can change those ultimately, like those are dials on a board that will ultimately lead to a different final action or final cause or final effect. And what they said was, if you got to a place where you could psychoanalyze, and they didn't say this, but this is where I took it. If you could psychoanalyze why those things trigger you to feel certain ways, that's when you could start to take control of your free will. Because you now know what things in your life make you, oh, when I drive down this road, for some damn reason, I always want to go to that bakery. And it's like, why do I always want to go to that bakery when I go down this road? Oh, do you remember when I was in my grandma's car and we were driving down this road and we had that hilarious moment, and I just remembered how much peace and like fun and just how much love I felt in that moment. So going to get that bakery right now, that I'm going to feel that love.
Yeah.
That's what I'm trying to feel right now. So I'm trying to feel the love. Okay, how can I love myself in a different way right now? So that's where, like, getting down to this nitty gritty of really going inwards,
Yeah.
which is what religion is all trying to tell you anyways, of finally going inwards and being with yourself and figuring out yourself, why you act certain ways, why you have certain traits, why certain things make you react in certain different ways, is when you can start to finally, in my head, take control of those certain things, set yourself up into different consistency in life, new traits, where you ultimately are controlling what finally are those actions that come about. That's where you finally get to have free will.
I think.
But if you let the matrix, and I'm just using that as a catchword here, but if you let all of the years of your programming, your society, your friends, your family make up all of those temperaments, traits, and beliefs or behaviors, then you have no control over those. And no, you don't have free will. But if you have control over those things, you know what you're doing, you say, okay, I want to be this type of person. That's who I see as the epitome of my next level or my version of success for my temple, which is my body. Okay, then what do I got to do to get there? Okay, so now I got to be very aware of when all those things pop up. And I got to be smart, and I got to start to really build a strategy for myself by going inward and having those discussions with myself.
Yeah.
To finally set myself up to be able to take back that control.
It sounds like control is the biggest thing here. like Brandon.
But do you even have control?
Brandon did have control this past weekend until he had that first double rum and coke in him.
Jack and Coke.
Jack and Coke in him. And then because of the the outlying factors that came into him, eventually he lost some of that control, which led him to make decisions that were less inclined to get Brandon in good graces with his girlfriend.
Wife.
Sorry. Trisha, I'm sorry. Jesus Lord. I know better than that. With his wife.
You didn't.
With his wife.
Got it on today.
He's got it on today.
I'm sorry, Trisha. I love you. Okay. So anyway, his wife. So I guess the point there would be that you had the control.
If he knew what ultimately stemmed from his
Right. Next time, don't drink as much. He said it himself.
No, but that's
Yeah,
the
or
thing.
don't
He
drink
already knows that.
Yeah.
He's well aware of it.
Right.
Just like I'm well aware of it, just like you are well aware of
Right.
it. If I do this or that, when it
Right.
comes down to alcohol, I'm going to put myself into inebriation. So if I know that already, then what
But
I'm
you're not
saying,
thinking about like,
Yeah,
I'm
but
going
that's
to
what I'm
piss off my
saying.
wife. Like, you're not
but that's what
thinking
I'm-
that.
right? But you don't even take the risk, bro. That's the thing. If you know that there's even that slight possibility, and if you care about those people enough, then you don't even take the opportunity. Like, oh, I'm gonna dance on this line.
Well, then,
I'm
again-
gonna play the line of, ooh, I'm gonna not get too drunk today. And it's just like, but do you want to dance on
Yeah,
that
I mean,
line,
it's
bro, or
like-
do you not? Like,
yeah, there's a risk too. You know, like, hey, this is the cause and effect of what can occur from my actions. Like, or the,
and
the
that's not
effect
me
of like,
hyping on you. I
yeah.
love you, bitch.
No, that's, I'm sorry. Yeah, the cause and effect
I'm
of,
just talking about it.
yeah, like thinking it that way. Like, hey, like, maybe,
No whiskey.
well, yeah.
No, but it's
like,
not, but that's not
but
what we're
that's
saying. Like,
is
it's
understanding like maybe the whole situation too. And again, this is just control. But like you find yourself in a situation, you are in total control to a certain instance. Maybe it's like, oh, I'm out with the whole family. Maybe tonight's not the night or something. But like, I think to a certain point, you can't just like remove the human element from it either. Like you're just like, then you're just saying, oh, I can't do this, can't do that, like can't do anything
because
you're paralyzed.
what right there, that just took away your free will.
Right.
If I can't do this, then what? Then you don't have free will.
Yeah.
The irony is how free I felt, but but I don't want to pass up some gold. I'm gonna re-rail us, not derail us, but I'm gonna re-rail us back to something that Zach was mentioning.
I know you're his wife.
So Zach was mentioning a very interesting concept about, I like that you reinforce the idea of control, and you were talking about programming, and it was really a concept I was going to visit earlier in the conversation. I'm like, I'm going to put a pin until later. And I'm so glad you touched that, because it's really what you described is inadvertently the premise of the Matrix in Nietzsche's Übermacht, which is, I think it's Uberman, which is Superman, which is Neo. You might even see it as the Bodhisattva, but the one who can choose their programming and then show others how to choose their own programming. So I think that personally is the closest we can get to free will with all aspects. I have probably 5 to 7 different examples of different determinisms, but all of them can be rivaled by the act of being proactive versus reactive. Stephen Covey, if anyone wants to read his 7 Habits of Highly Successful People. But in what you were saying, you can always be reactive to anything that's happening. With me, in the example of whiskey, it was like, hey, at any given moment, I can acknowledge and notice how much fun I'm having and be like, okay, do you want to like draw that out? And I'm like, oh no, the answer is to add more. It was like, well, you could be proactive and then just like read the room. But the room was also a bunch of drunk people partying. So it was not very helpful, but being proactive, you choose your programming and you in advance, you're knowing what kind of things can happen. I think you also, I don't know if the word you're looking for was interpretations or feelings in that situation you're talking about, because you were actually describing cognitive behavioral therapy. You have your trigger, your beliefs, your actions, and in between there, you have your interpretations and your feelings. and you can tweak your interpretation and your beliefs in order to change your actions and your thoughts. It all starts with your thoughts, and then it becomes this cycle, and you need to intervene in between there. So we use cognitive behavioral therapy to rewire people's thinking so it doesn't just become them on autopilot or Neo at the beginning of the Matrix.
Dude, that's cool.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. I just talked about it.
Look at you.
Holy cow. I'm sick and tired of Anastasia telling me, you're trying to therapist me. I'm just talking. I'm just
I don't know what I'm
communicating. I don't
talking
know
about.
where these thoughts came from.
Ask her open-ended questions. You'll
Free
drive her
will.
crazy.
Yeah, you're just, oh, God, I know that look, man.
If you ever want to therapize, just ask open-ended questions. Don't ever answer anything. No, I'm kidding.
Oh,
Goodness. You'll lose
Just
it
kidding.
instantaneously.
I lose interest in that very
So,
quickly.
free will. I mean, we're sitting here trying to discuss also the thought of our thoughts. Where the hell do they come from? You know, and we just had a discussion or saw the old story about the gentleman who did some unspeakable things, who had a brain tumor, had the brain tumor removed, desire to do the unspeakable things came back. Is it the brain tumor? Is it not?
Mhm.
Do you have control over that brain tumor? Do you not have control over that brain tumor? So where do our thoughts come from? And where would a thought, like for me, like free will is this ability to come here, experience whatever it is that's going on here, and figure out what's next and becoming tomorrow, making it to another opportunity to experience what I experienced today, to leading me to like, okay, so how does spirit tie into this? How does my soul tie into this? How does mind, body, spirit tie into this? And then I just have this crazy idea of like, what if all of us, you know, the universe is nature. Like that's what our world is. That's what our planet is. Our planet is nature. You and I are nature. Nature always endures. Nature is always trying to grow and expand and continue the everlasting cycle. So what if all of us were actually here trying to learn how to get to a place where we can finally understand energy, understand ourselves, understand metaphysics, and be able to get to a place where you and I can become a creator of a world like this. And then what we are basically like spores to a plant that spore off into the existence of the vast universe. Once we've gotten to a level where we can finally transcend the human experience, and now it's our job to go and continue expanding the universe and build another version of something like this somewhere else.
As
That's
above, I was gonna say as above, so below. Like that's like,
It's a crazy thought.
yeah, just kind of like it's like a reflection of like what the universe is already and what's makes up us and everything around us. Which I think there was a video I watched. I don't even want to recall it because I don't want to butcher it, but it had the same instance. Like you just keep reliving the same, not the same life, but you keep reincarnating here over and over and over and over and over and over again. Um, until you live every life there ever was to live, like in this realm. And then, like, with that knowledge, you would become one with the creator of that, like, universe, and then go off and do your own thing.
Well, yeah, that would be basically accumulating every ounce, every mere morsel of intelligence, of knowledge, of human experience,
Yeah.
of everything that you could possibly potentially do.
Yeah, I guess the premise.
That's the all-knowing.
Yeah, the premise of that too is like I guess of more not like the focus on becoming like one in that instance, but also like like looking at everyone as a reflection of yourself, and how the actions you like, or the way I treat you is exactly the way I treat myself. Like there are reflections, not only like, hey, like if you put good in the world, no, that's more in the karma instance of like, hey, if you put good in the world, you get good back, and the same thing with bad. But I think with that, at least, you kind of still find that in there a bit, like whether it's like, a reflection of yourself, how you treat others, the karma kind of finds its way back into this conversation, regardless of if you look into free will or the determinism.
Well,
Thank you.
if we were looking at this concept, Brandon,
Mhm.
and this concept that I'm referencing is how many times do you have to show love to somebody before they finally like, and I'm talking real love. I'm talking the type of love that I know you do on a regular basis with a certain situation. How many times do you have to continue showing up for someone, a person, a thing, a situation,
Mhm.
to where that person, situation, or that thing finally sees what is happening and might see the harm that they might be inflicting, the pain they might be pushing onto people, the stress, the agony, the
Mhm.
anxiety that their actions are causing to others? Like how many I guess what I'm trying to say is like I've come down to this realization that the only true way that for me, this is just my
Mhm.
concepts. I hope someone can blow me out of the I hope someone can blow my concept out of the water. But if I'm a bad person, a part of group A,
Mhm.
and I'm group A and I'm oppressing people, and group B decides like, "Oh man, we don't like what's going on there. So we're going to band together and we're going to take down group A and we're going to
Mhm.
get them to cease what they're doing." So group B starts to band together to start to attack group A. Well, group A sees that there is now a rebellion starting against them. So now they're a animal getting backed into a corner.
Mhm.
So that group A is going to what potentially get more volatile, get more, like bestiality,
Yeah.
get very guerrilla warfare, start doing more, tormenting to try to take back that control, take back
Mhm.
that power. And let's say, well, group B wins. Yip de doo.
Mhm.
Now group B's in charge. Well, now group C doesn't like how group B's being. They don't like some of their tactics. It's just a never ending, consistent game of like, if it doesn't get to a place where we can finally sit down and just be like, I see you. I love you.
Love you too, dog. I know that's not what you're saying.
I don't care what you've done. It's okay. Forget all that stuff from the past.
Mhm.
But how can you, as a human, how can you, as a human, look someone in the face who's either done so wrong to you or so wrong to other humans or so wrong to people that you care about and just be like, it's okay. I love you. Fuck, dude.
Takes a lot of strength.
Like, how could you sit there and look at someone who's done such terrible things and just be able to say that to them and mean it? Not
Mhm.
just like, oh, we're on camera and I'm trying to get a social media post. No, I mean
Mhm.
like truly fucking mean it and just be okay with it. Because and the only way that we're going to get to a place where the human race can finally be okay with each other is when we can finally say like, I'm okay with what you did in your past. And tomorrow, I'm not going to let you in my backyard because I know what your past is, but I'm also not going to come after you.
Mhm.
Or I'm not going to hang you at the stake because of what you did. Like, that's the only way that we can finally get to a place where everything ceases and the human race can ascend to become a more fantastic planet and become more one with nature and take ourselves from a type 1 planet to like a completely different type of planet that is one with nature and one with our surroundings and prolongs life for generations and generations to come. And I just don't know, man. Like, that's such a hard concept to sit here because then you're like, shouldn't that just be like rational thought?
I mean, yes. So then why not? Right.
Because it's hard to do. And is it the programming?
No, I mean,
But
yeah,
is it the
it probably
programming?
it probably might be the programming. The again backed up to like, free will or having a determined outcome. Like it leans back into like, okay, obviously everyone would love for the human race to advance at an exponential rate, where everyone is being taken care of and compassion is through every person in the entire world. That's something I think everyone would sign up for, most people at least. But again, then you have those outliers. You have random events. You have people's pasts and traumas and the way they've been treated before and how they'll be treated again. So like, it's hard to like give that trust to the rest of the human. Like, how are you supposed to trust the rest of the human race that if you give that out, then you're going to get it back? Because that's not a fair deal. If not,
No, because to me, the only way that you can do that is you've basically have become this person who has transcended the human experience. Like, you're still here in this dimension. Like, you can see me, but like, it's to that old wise tale of the monks in the monastery, and the monks are told to basically get out of here because an empire is coming in and they are taking over this land. And one of the monks stays, and basically the leader of the army comes up and bangs open the doors and walks up to the monk and tells him like, "Do you not know that I could bat an eye and grab my sword and stab you through your stomach and kill you?" And he looks at him and he says, "Don't you know that I could, in a bat of an eye, take your sword straight through my stomach and completely be unfazed?" So like, the only way that you can actually get to that place is you've basically, I don't know, man, I'm getting to like a crazy place where I don't really want to bring religion into it, but I'm just trying to understand like, I'm just trying to understand humans, and I really don't understand like, I get the yin to the yang and I get all this different stuff, and like, I'm trying to really like grasp my head like where these bigger concepts now are coming into like what was put through me for 30 years. Like, I never experienced anybody being sexually harmed as a kid. But why do I have this like raging desire to want to try to rid the world of sex trafficking? Like, I don't know, dude. Like, but why is that something that is a part of me if that's not something that has stemmed from my 30 years of experience in this world?
yeah.
So, like, is that where we're starting to pull in, like, your past lives actually play into this life too? And then, whoa, now we're on some woo woo shit again. Now we're on the woo woo shit of like reincarnation and, I have more than one life and I've lived all these different lives. And like, now it's like, holy shit, we just lost people because
Right.
how do we have a conversation of like, where do we transcend as humans? Because, oh, we took it to that weird place again. And it's just like, fuck, dude. Like, let's just
Yeah.
sit down and keep talking. Like, just be vast. Just be open with me. Like, I'm not sitting here thinking that all the things that we talked about even today, right now, are my 100% truths. And right now, the things that are in my head, I'm trying to learn and grasp and understand these concepts. And that's what makes this podcast right now, to me, so much different than any other ones that are going on with these discussions is I don't fucking know anything, and I'm not going to sit here like I do. I'm just some dude who's 31 years old and I want to learn. And so I want to talk about these things. I want to communicate, and I want to find a place where I don't have to go to my job and do engineering. I could spend maybe 10 or 20 years doing this right here, learning about the human race and learning about myself and like really taking some time to like, okay, now it's 2023. Let's do some crazy shit. I'm 30 years old and I don't have any background. I don't have any connection to all this woo-woo stuff. Like I don't have any family ties to anything. I'm just some random dude who just somehow found all this shit
Yeah.
through no mentor, through no like. So I'm just like, I want to be like, I want to be a fucking lab rat to like learn some stuff and learn some things about me, learn how I can transcend myself like in this human experience. Like, I don't want to get to this crazy fucking place where I'm doing like this hardcore like science experiments on myself. I'm talking about just like going through life as a normal person, waking up, doing life, and just discussing things like this
Yeah.
and seeing where we can start to try to like take ourselves to a different place. Like maybe if we started having these like woo woo conversations, maybe some other things that are right now, like our current reality, might start to like move away because people would be like,
Yeah,
maybe this shit is
But-
interesting.
but like then you're just gonna die like pretty quick. Like we're only here like for like so long, unfortunately. So like yes, in my opinion, but also I probably side with the let's not take it so seriously side. Like in my opinion, like that's just me. Like if we look
Yeah.
into it too much, then what's the point of being here at all? You know, like that. I'm not like I think it like discredits like not going the other way and just saying, hey, like maybe I'm just supposed to be here to hang out and not think too much about it, have some fun, and that's just about it. And by the time I'm going like, oh yeah, this was cool, and getting a little older, and then I'm done. It's over, and then that's cool. And what happens after is whatever. So I know there's a whole conversation about like coming back and how your past lives get in there, and I totally subscribe again to that. But I think what's nice there is that like you can go either route. Like if that's the whole thing is that like if that's what's important to you, then it should not matter to anybody that that's important to you. And if other people see the benefit in what you're doing, then that should allow people the empowerment to go out and figure those things out for themselves. But I think on the other hand too, the way I like listen out, I'm like, yeah, that's awesome, man. And like going in and finding out yourself and who you are and how we act and why we do things and yada yada yada. Like you might get your answer, but like I feel like you're gonna be doing digging for a very long time to the point where it's like, is that worth it because we live such a fleeting existence? Like we're just pretty much on the way out the door already. Not really. Obviously, we have a ton left, but like in the grand span of existence or whatever that might be, it is already over. So that's what I take from it. It has nothing to do with your side at all. I didn't mean to pin it like that,
What
but
if,
I think the thought process there for me is just like I wouldn't. I don't think, dude. Just our brain can only take so much, and we can only dig so much into it. Like even, dude, if Brandon handed me a philosophy book once, took it on vacation. I started reading. I said, dude, there's just about no way I'm going to understand literally a page. It's all words. It's English words. It's written in sentences. I understand the structure of paragraphs. I've done a fair bit of writing myself in my life, and the way those words were combined made literally no freaking sense to me at all. So yeah, of course they made sense to somebody else and a lot of other people. And I'm not saying that like I still think there's an ability for people to reach in an enlightened sense of reality or being without having to go down paths that may take extra IQ points. You know what I mean? Like in that sense, or people who want to take
Yeah.
a deeper journey into themselves or experiment on themselves. Like I still think there's ways to find that in life, even through trying like a minimal amount,
That's
To be fair, that's a Carl Jung book. So that's
Yeah.
a 300
Yeah.
page book that a lot of professors say is dense. So
Dude, dense is the funniest word to describe that book. Because Brandon handed me. I said, I mean, I'll read it. Like, I
You
might
asked
not,
if I had a book.
I
I was
might
like, I
not
got
get
one.
it. And dense, like, I thought it was like dense like a cake. Like, not dense like the most boring fucking thing I've ever read in my life.
Dude, you gotta have a little bit of will.
I need a little
to
bit
get
of
through there.
freaking alcohol to read that book, dude. That shit did not. My brain was not lubricating a way for me to understand anything at all.
On a side note, can I sum up a little bit of what you guys kind of gave me? Some,
Please.
Well, these are kind of your own words that I'm kind of regurgitating in my
Perfect.
little therapist brain. But
That's our angle.
I was digesting a lot of what you said, Zach, about, I'll just say it as the neighbor, in group, out group. We have our neighbor and we're maybe even trying to let bygones be bygones, move forward. And I got a lot of themes about like purpose and like, what are we doing here? And as I got to thinking about the whole concept of free will versus determinism, good versus evil, and far as our actions, and it made me think about self-interest versus altruism. And I think that I got a little bit of like the feeling of like us feeling the struggle to just like improve, but also not step on toes and to move forward to make ourselves better and take other people with us. And I think it's very interesting because I tend to be an example of somebody who offers more altruism than self-interest, and you don't always get rewarded for it. And it becomes painful because we've talked about this before. Not everyone deserves my respect, and it's hard to take it back or stop giving it. It's an addiction. I have an addiction to altruism, and when people are not kind, I still give them kindness. It's like me tipping every waitress 20% when one sucks. It's like, really? Do you think that would teach them anything? It's like, well, I mean, it's just, it's just courtesy. It's like, well, screw courtesy. Like, you give them 15% if they give shady service. Then you still give them the etiquette, and the people who deserve it get 25. But I don't know if that's the answer. But I think it's very interesting to think about it as like, free will versus determinism and good versus evil, as, we have these conscious decisions always. And I consider myself to be like a steward of the world. Derek and I went to North Catholic. That's one thing that stuck with me. You're a steward. You see, I still pick up like a grasshopper with a broken leg and I'll relocate him. I'll help him out. But I try to think about it in terms of altruism versus self-interest. So that begs a question for me. Where do you guys see like self-interest and altruism fitting into the equation of free will and determinism?
I see that for me is where I think the hardest piece of the puzzle is how can we not see that we're on the same planet? Like, getting to that place of reconciling with anybody who's done any wrong to you on this planet, and how can't you get to a place where you would see like, okay, so I'm a part of this ultra situation of like all these people that are on this same planet. We're here for this. This is our home. But I have different desires than that person down the street. So I just see those things as like, I think that for me is where I'm stuck in trying to figure out how to make money without feeling like I'm scamming people, because just about everything seems like a scam, because unless someone truly wanted, like unless someone came to you, like, I guess to me, like, I was trying to think of like what are an actual true honorable trade. And I thought about it and I was like, man, like, well, if you're doing some type of craft, like, okay, so if I'm a woodworker, like this person comes to me and they're like, I want this bar built. And you're like, okay, so I have these skills that then I did this for them and they gave me money. And like, I didn't create something and then try to get everybody to buy that thing. Like, no, I had a skill that person found useful. And instead of, they had nothing to give back to me, so they had cash. So like now I'm sitting here like I was like this past week I'm like, well, fuck, I better go get a shit ton of skills because like I'm like trying to understand this concept of like.
But I still think there's a moral journey along the way. Like, it's not that like cool. Like now you're just out of screwing people over. You do something honorable, but like what happens when you make a deal with somebody and you owe them a favor on the side, and then you take advantage of that favor, or like
Yeah.
like anything like that. I still think no matter what the trade is, regardless of like you're not starting out with a malicious intent, but you can definitely end up there. It just all depends. It's just making sure you're keeping yourself on the up and up, making sure you're keeping yourself on the righteous path, and I think that's
So like
That's
your
rough.
personal stuff versus the stuff of the collective. Like that's where does that weigh for you? Like your personal
Yeah.
things that you want in life
Mhm.
versus like what Titty
Am I
says
willing to
was-
sacrifice what Titty wants for what I want? Like, is that? Do you mean it like that?
So no, not what he wants, but what the collective wants.
Okay.
So like everybody wants certain thing.
Yeah.
Versus you want this one thing.
Okay.
Where do those weigh for you? Is what he was asking us.
Yeah.
And how do they compare to each other for you?
Yeah. It's a good question. I guess that's something I never considered, so I'll probably give a really boring answer to it. But I guess like going back to what you just said too, and like and what you've been harping on a little bit too on the side of like finding a way to live a life that doesn't impede on the will of others. So like that has stuck with me too in a way that like it kind of does keep you like and if you are going to interact with others, it's in the most sincere and genuine form you can possibly muster up at the current time.
Yeah.
So I think that has stuck with me recently, and that's what I'll say to that question is like, looking at like knowing what's best for you, being on the journey to get it, having the trust that with the right effort it'll come to you, and not manipulating or imposing your will on the greater good to make sure it happened at the expense of the greater good. And I think that's been cool too, because like anywhere, like my personal life, my professional life, wherever, like it's easy to get lost in the mix of anything. And when you're able to take a step back, have a clear understanding of what it is that you desire, and then realizing that when you put the burden on somebody else because you haven't achieved that yet, then you're just doing yourself and that person's self a disservice.
Yeah.
And I think that's been interesting for me, because I know you've been throwing that out there, but I think it's been helpful too, just to make sure that I'm putting my energy towards what I want, whatever it is I desire in a certain situation, because that's where the energy needs to go. It doesn't
Yeah.
need to go anywhere else. And if I'm doing that, then that's not only a disservice to somebody else, but even more, it's a disservice to me.
I think it's a hard concept to really finally like lock down. I think it's another one of those things where it's like
I'm beyond us that we
Shit,
can even have a
until-
conversation about it. Like, we can do this for 54 minutes. I'm like, how have we kept it up for this long? Because this is not.
this
is yeah.
for me like the self. Okay, so let's use an example. I want to be a rock star. So I spend my life I'm trying to be a rock star. So if I want to be a rock star, then that means that someone else can't be a rock star. Because there can only be so many rock stars, man. If everybody's a rock star, then there is no rock stars. So there can only be so
There's
many
always
to
room
make
for
it
one
special.
more,
Special. But in that sense of being so hyper focused on the self and just being locked in on that's it. It's me. It's me or the highway. If you don't have any gratitude for understanding that you are a part of this ultimate overall collective, like, okay, I strive to go become a rock star, but I find out that I'm really fucking good at recording music and making beats. And I could become a producer that could then bring out this entire other line of rock stars. So in my goal of becoming a rock star, I actually benefited the overall collective to more rock stars becoming it by me not being this pompous ass that's like, I'm laser focused on myself. It's me over the highway.
Yeah.
You know, that was where I was trying to go with like trying to bring the two of those together and how you could finally like, okay, I have these goals in my life and I'm going to shoot for those. But you know what, brother? I better be damn aware on the way of all the other things that come about. And I better keep myself in the moment. Okay, that's the goal. Cool, it's over there. We'll get there. But I'm right here right now. So I got to be focused on right now.
Right.
And every once in a while, I'll sit there and I'll just go, this is what it would feel like to be a rock star. Oh, man. Getting out on that stage. Oh, can you see the lights? And you just sit there for just a couple minutes and you just envision it. And then you come bring yourself right back into the moment. And you're just aware of it. And you keep understanding that that's an emotion, that's a feeling that you can lock yourself into. But if you're always in that moment, always aware, and a part of that altruistic, overall, everybody mentality of being a part of the collective, like, I'm doing it for the art of the music. That's why it was. It's not that I want to be a rock star. It's that I want to share more art with the world. And I know that if I become a rock star, then that means that my stuff will go out to more people. So my music, my art will affect more people. And that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to affect more people. But if I'm so laser focused on just myself, and I don't see how I could potentially benefit the overall collective, man, then I just lost out on the game. And that right then and there is where you don't hyper focus. To me, I'm starting to think about what the hell should I do going forward. You don't hyper focus on what is it, those actions, what are all these tiny little things that made me think this way, that did this, that did that, whoa, hold up. Big deep breath, back in the moment. What's the moment? What's at stake right now? Take care of right now. Move on to the next one. That's what we're working towards. All right, let's go.
Yeah. There's a why factor to that, you know? Like, hey, let's remember why I'm doing this.
Yeah. So free will. We ain't gonna understand it. I don't want to understand it because if I understand it, then what the hell? I'm not a human.
All right, well, folks, that's it.
So this was another installment of the Dismount Podcast, and as always, we say, don't trust us, trust yourself. And thanks, guys.
Thank you for joining us, guys. Also, one last note. I've said it again. I'll say it before. Service is the rent we pay for occupying space on this earth.
Oh, I like that one.
Later.
Don't hesitate to catch episode 19 releasing next. Buddy old pal, Chief Bossman, why does it bother me? Catch the video version of this podcast on YouTube. Catch the audio edition anywhere you listen to your podcasts. Take care. We'll see you out there.